StreamYard is awful. Let me see. Actually, it looked better on my phone than on StreamYard, don't it, y'all? Yep, it does. I think I'm just gonna have to start using my phone because StreamYard is not. The picture don't come out good. So we back to reading our book, The New World Order, chapter 29, The Attack on the Family. And as I was stating before, the destruction of the black family started in the 60s when they created the welfare system, and the black man had to be removed from the family and husband in order for the wife to receive benefits, food stamps and health care and all of that. That was the beginning destruction on the family. And now we see, wait a minute, I'm so glad that the Department of Education has been destroyed. It needs to go back to the states because the federal government has done a piss poor job in educating our children. We are last when it comes to reading, writing, and arithmetic. We don't produce engineers, doctors, lawyers, not enough. We have to import our computer uh, specialists from India and other countries to come and help. And that's why we have such a shortage. We don't manufacture anything, and I believe the states would do a better job in educating the children of their state because they know better their demographic and what is needed. For example, my son, third grade, they removed cursive. I was the only parent that pitched a bitch because I was like, how was he supposed to sign legal documents um if you're not teaching him cursive? He can't sign legal documents. I was the only one. I had to go out and buy cursive books, teach him cursive and how to sign his name when it comes to legal documents. And that's what I did as a parent. So I'm glad about that. And so now you see the attack on the family with all this um, under the last administration, drag queen story time for elementary. What is Steve and Adam, dad? I mean, that can be a family as well. That's not what I'm saying, but it's the indoctrination and the agenda that was being promoted to very young minds in order for them to be accepted. And it's done under the guise of population control. And that's a fact. I don't care what your sexuality is, what you do, but it's the agenda and the indoctrination for me that has to stop. Oh, shoot. Hold on. Hold on, y'all. Yep, I'm live. I'll call you right back, okay? Mhm. So, the family unit has been called the cornerstone of civilization. The concept that parents are responsible for the upbringing of the children produced during marriage is the cornerstone of American life. That's a fact. Yet there are efforts in America today to undermine, if not destroy, the family unit altogether. That is a fact. The desire to destroy the family unit is and has been briefly alluded to in in the book of Marilyn Ferguson, the New Age writer, The Aquarian Conspiracy. That is a great book. That is a great book. She wrote, many socialists anticipate the evolution of monogamy. Marriage, they say, must be transformed as an institution if it is to survive at all. If monogamy is tied instrictly with the restriction of all sexual expression to the spouse, they said it will ultimately be monogamy that suffers. The word monogamy has two meanings: the practice or state of being married to only one person at a time, the practice of marrying only once during a lifetime. The dictionary added an appendage to the second definition. It said that the definition was rare, and indeed it is. The tradition in America that the husband takes himself a wife and then remains faithful to that spouse for the remainder of their life together is a Judeo Christian one. In other words, it comes from the beliefs and teachings of two religious faiths. Since this is not something that is written instinctively into the hearts of all men, and since man is given free choice, man is free to accept or reject the created institution of the family. The married man does not have to have but one wife and to remain faithful to her. It is only religion that has taught him that monogamous marriage is the preferable lifestyle. Marilyn Ferguson also wrote, traditional monogamy contravenes the growing sense that the greatest good of human existence is deep interpersonal relationships, as many of these as is compatible with death. Younger people are trying to devise and invent a form of marriage appropriate to a new era. As has been previously illustrated, the New Age movement and communist movement want to destroy the family. Here, one of the major New Age writers says that it is the young people who are attempting to devise a new marriage institution. The children are being taught to change the marriage contract by those in the New Age movement. Even the definition of family, meaning a male husband, a female wife, a child, or children, has been redefined for the New Age. Marilyn Ferguson also wrote, the American Home Economics Association refined the family in 1979 as two or more persons, meaning two men or two women, as well as one man and one woman who share resources, share responsibility to one another over time. The family is that climate that no one comes home to, and it is this network of sharing and commitments that most accurately describes the family union, regardless of blood, legal ties, adoption, or marriage. The American concept of marriage is that of a male husband and a female wife. Homosexual or lesbian marriages are not legal. Well, they were, and then they not now, but that's not the point. We're talking about the destruction of the family. But that can change anytime those who make laws decide to change it. And that's exactly what I was going to say. The New Agers apparently want to change the laws to allow the marriage of two men or two women. A major step in changing the traditional definition of family occurred in the state of New York. I'm not surprised. In July 6, 1989, court rules gave couple a family. The article reported New York's highest court ruled today that a partner in a long-term homosexual relationship may take over the couple's rent-controlled apartment when the lover who signed the lease dies. I have no problem with that. The Court of Appeals ordered a lower court to reconsider its decision to evict a New York City man from a rent-controlled apartment he shared with his now-dead lover. The court expanded the definition of a family. The word is crucial because state law says only family members may take over rent control apartments when a tenant of record dies. The court said the court said that the definition should include adults who show long-term financial and emotional commitment to each other, even if they don't fit the traditional meaning of a family. So even the definition of a family is under attack. It will have to be changed if the family is to be destroyed. As discussed, there are some who want the family unit to be destroyed altogether. The destruction of the family unit has been a goal of communists and socialists for over 140 years. Karl Marx said, "Abolition of the family." Even the most radical flare-ups at this infamous proposal of the communists. Robert Owen said, the father socialist, he said, in the new moral world, The irrational names of husband and wife, parent and child will be heard no more. All connection will be the result of affection. The child will undoubtedly be the property of the whole community. And the process of change from the idea that the raising of a child should be the responsibility of the family to that where the child will be raised by the state has already started in some communist countries. One of these countries is Cuba. The Cuban people were once basically a religious people with the overwhelming majority belonging to the Catholic Church. But much of that has changed since Fidel Castro, the communists, converted the nation into a communist country. He said heterosexual relations in Cuba are characterized by rampant promiscuity and widespread prostitution. The abject poverty to which Castro has reduced the island encourages prostitution. The institution of marriage has almost lost its meaning in Cuba. Many persons marry and divorce frequently. The Castro regime has worked to destroy family ties and to break the control of parents over their children. The communists of Cuba have baited children with the offer by setting up live-in schools in the countryside. At those schools, students study half a day and then must work in the fields for the other half. While attendance at these camp schools is not mandatory, students of junior high and high school levels are encouraged to attend. Even students who do not attend the live-in school must participate yearly in a 6-week period deep in the rural areas of Cuba. The Castro regime relies heavily upon the use of hundreds of thousands of unpaid school children to work in the fields each year. Under the cover of educational programs, the Castro regime exploits child labor and disrupts parental authority. It is interesting that the leader of Cuba, Fidel Castro, sets the example of infidelity and promiscuity in the marriage union. He has 5 known children born out of wedlock to different mothers. Other communist nations have shown their commitment to the destruction of the family. The communists in China have also been at least partially successful in their drive to destroy the family unit. Those who have studied that nation's past know that the family unit had been the cornerstone of their civilization for centuries. One Chinese citizen who was able to flee his country after the communists took control in 1949 was Reverend Xin Ping Wang, the East Asia director of the Baptist Evangelical Society. He said the family unit is broken up. Husbands and wives are separated into different barracks. The children are taken away from the parents and placed in government-run nurseries. Husbands and wives meet only once a week for 2 hours. They have no other contact. Wow. The parents may see their children once a week. When they see them, they can show no affection toward their children. Names are taken away from children and they are given numbers. There is no individual identity. Wow. Some of the measures to control the family unit in China are rather subtle, while others are not. For instance, any couple wishing to get married must have permission of the Communist Party. Political descendants, for one, are not permitted to marry. Once any couple is granted the permission, even the decision as to how many children a couple can have as so-called marriage is the decision of others. Well, normally they can have one. I think they changed over 10 years ago to 2. One who testified to this fact was Chinese refugee Dr. Han Suan. He said residents of each neighborhood in the People's Republic of China meet annually to decide how many babies will be born during the next year and to which families. Priority is given to newly married women without children. As a guarantee against chance or mistakes, contraceptive pills are distributed on each street every morning. Wow. This policy of allowing the people to decide just how many children each couple can have in China has led to the practice of infanticide, meaning the intentional killing of babies, right? Because they normally kill the female the girls because they want boys to carry on the name, and that's why it's disproportionate. It's more men than females. So now that they taking over Africa, they're marrying these African ladies in order because there's not enough women for the men. The government does not allow any couple to have more than one child, and this edict has caused the following problem. A leading newspaper of southern China reported in 1980 eight female infants were found dead in front of the local party headquarters. Most have been suffocated. The article continued by explaining should a couple's first and only child be a girl, many parents feel they will be left without any care or source of support in their declining years. I told y'all. Thus, in certain areas, some parents have begun murdering their firstborn female offspring. Other options are available for those parents who do not have the courage to murder their children. An estimated 25 million illegals are living in Red China. They are unregistered children who are not immigrants or aliens, but native born Chinese whose parents hid them and kept them unregistered by the government because of its official one family child policy. The unregistered children cannot attend government schools, receive government aid of any kind, or work for the government in any capacity. I never knew that. This decision to allow one child to a couple has forced, for example, if a couple persists in having a second child, one or of the parents is forced to buy all grain rations at twice the regulation price for the next 7 years. The third child does not get the identity card that entitles him to food rations. But if the Communist Party discovers that a Chinese woman got pregnant without their permission, they force her to have an abortion. Wow. Wow. Jonathan Mirsky wrote that women who got pregnant without permission have been kidnapped on Communist Party orders and forced to have an abortion, even if she was in her third trimester of her pregnancy. Wow. The one child per family concept poses another problem. What does the Communist Party do with a woman who gives birth to twins? Stephen Moser wrote, an official demanded that she specify which of the two she wished to raise. The mother could not answer him, so the official made the decision for her, disposing of one of the newborn babies. Wow. The practice of abortion has become so widespread that the United States government has estimated more than 78 million were performed in Red China between the years 1971 and 82. But the Communist Chinese placed other obstacles in the way of the Chinese couple. It is now mandatory for women to work in the fields they do, and they still do all the housework. Obviously, a Chinese woman forced to work in the field does not have time to be involved in the full-time raising of the family. Mm. Peasant girls in remote southern regions of China are taking their lives in unprecedented numbers. Girls are committing suicide in record numbers in Red China because of the pressure of the marriage, the abortion problem, and the requirement that they give birth to only one child. But the problem in China is not too many Chinese, it's simply too much communism. The communists have imposed communism, also called the New World Order, on the Chinese people, and it has failed. The communist system does not work. It has never worked, and it's not working in China. And there's an easy way to prove that this statement is correct. Off the shore of communist China lies the islands of Taiwan, and China won't Taiwan back. This separate Chinese nation has not brought the fraud known as communism. It is basically allowing its citizens to enjoy the right to private property. The Taiwanese government is supporting the economic system known as free enterprise system. Former Congressman Elwin Roy of Arizona said, with 270 times the land area, 58 times the population, the the GNP, gross national product of China, is only 10 times that of the GNP of Taiwan. The figures I cited illustrate beyond contradiction the material abundance created by freedom's climate. In my view, this is the smallest and least important of remarkable difference between the People's Republic of China. The two differences is spirit, the human condition, the absence of compulsion and remediation, the pressure of individual opportunity. So the problem in China is not too much population, it's too much communism. It is too much New World Order. So the family unit in China, the cornerstone of their civilization for centuries, has essentially been destroyed by the Communist Party. And it was not destroyed by mistake, it was planned. And the Bolshevik communists in the Soviet Union, um, in a 1988 Reader's Digest magazine, said at least 13 million urban families still must live in communal apartments or dormitories, sharing bath, kitchen, and even bedrooms with other families. In Moscow, newly constructed apartment complexes are crumbling. So a great percentage of Russian families do not have a place to live separate from other people. Married life does not seem explicitly attractive to young couples contemplating marriage. So if the communists are trying to destroy the family in Russia, one of the ways to do it would be not to construct enough government-owned apartments or houses. And that is exactly what they have done. Wow. Topping the world in legal abortions is the Soviet Union, where there are estimated 8 million annually or 30 million worldwide. According to Moscow News, 1 in 10 of the first pregnancies in Russia end in legal killing of an unborn child. Those who support the concept of legal abortions often claim that those who charge that life being a contraceptives are wrong. Their position is that life begins at birth, but there are others who are claiming that even that date is not adequate and that life should start at some later date. Sir Francis Crick, he wrote in his book Humanist Manifest 2, no newborn infant will be declared human unless it has passed certain tests regarding its genetic endowment. If it fails these tests, it forfeits its right to live. Damn, that's strong. Wow. Picture the anguish of parents who have given life to a newborn child deemed to be defective by Dr. Crick when they discovered that the good doctor had decided to take his right to life. Imagine what this concept does to those planning a family. And now the reader can understand that some of the humanists think of the value of human life. Once an individual denies the existence of God, he becomes God himself, and he can decide all of these things that other people feel God used to decide, such things as the right to life, the right to property, etc. But the attacks on the family in America are a little more subtle, but they are real nonetheless. In 1988, the Supreme Court decided that the husband has no right to stop his wife from having an abortion. The appeals court, which passed the decision until the Supreme Court has stated that the husband has no right to veto his wife's decision to have an abortion, as the decision is only hers. That's wrong. This decision certainly had a long-lasting effect upon the marriage where both parties to the marriage contract are supposed to have a say in any decision that affects both parties. But the latest attack on the family is a new phenomenon called child abuse. The National Committee for Child Abuse advised there are 1.2 million reports of child abuse in 1984. Those who paid attention to this current figures are outraged. However, the reason that the response to these statistics is called hysteria we got a lot going on my block today. Let me see. In America, the hysteria has led to horrendous intrusion of government into private family matters, much of which appears to be unwarranted and some of which is harmful to the children involved. The definitions of child abuse have bas- basically made criminals out of nearly every parent in America. The National Institute of Mental Health, November 1985, defines victims of violence against children as being those who have been slapped, spanked, or pushed, grabbed, or shoved their children. It would be difficult to find any parent in America that wouldn't be included in those categories. And the traditional family, as was known in America for centuries, no longer exists. And some are pleased. The view by Mr. Calhoun, who wrote Social History of the American Family, he wrote, the view is that higher and more obligatory relations is to society rather than to family. The family goes back to the age of savagery while the state belongs to the age of civilization. The modern individual is a world citizen served by the world, and home interests can no longer be supreme. But as soon as the new family consisted only of parents and children stood before, society saw how many were unfit for parenthood and began to realize the need for community care. As familism of a wider sort weakens, society has assumed a larger parenthood. In general, society is becoming more and more to accept as a duty a task of guaranteeing a wholesome upbringing of the young. The child passes more and more into the custody of the community. The family unit in America is decaying, and thinking is that society must hire experts who are capable of the raising of children instead of parents. So suddenly, child abuse articles started showing up in newspapers of America. When experts say that it's time to take the children away from the parents, the society will accept the decision because it appears to be the proper solution. If the less stringent course curves on procreation fail someday, perhaps childbearing will be deemed a punishable crime against society unless the parents hold a government license. Or perhaps all potential parents will be required to use contraceptive chemicals. The governments issue antidotes to citizens of childbearing. In addition to the family causing all of this harm to the children, parents are also producing too many offsprings. The contention is that the world is simply overpopulated. Friends of the Earth said we should set a goal of reducing population to a level that the planet's resources can sustain indefinitely at a decent standard of living, probably less than 2 billion. Here we go with depopulation. Wow. Wow. When one considers that the world has approximately 5 billion people on it, now can only wonder how the friends of Earth are going to eliminate 3 billion people. What they doing it here? The food bad, the air bad, the water bad. They doing it here in the United States. So far, the solutions do not include plans to simply poison or shoot billions of people, but one can only wonder what the friends of the earth will offer the world if people do not voluntarily solve this problem. Ultimately, these policies may have to embrace coercion by governments to curb breeding. It doesn't take much imagination to envision a size of government that would have ability to prevent every couple in the world from producing unwanted pregnancies. Nor does it take superior intelligence to see what the next step would be should all these voluntary methods fail. If the world population will not voluntarily stop producing too many children, then coercive measures must be employed. The World Future Society said the adult criminal of the 21st century may be less common than the 20th century counterparts, in part because of the way society treats children from the moment they are born. Parental care in the year 2000 may be different from today's and better since by then the movement to license or certify parents may well be underway. In most cases, certified couples must be allowed to have their own natural children. In some instances, however, the genetic scanning, many find that some women and men can produce super babies but are not well suited to rear them. These couples would be licensed to breed, will give up their children to other people licensed to rear them. Child breeding and rearing wanted children will have fewer environmental reasons to turn to crime, and controlled breeding will result in fewer biological reasons for crime. This is deep. The attack on the family in America has taken several clever and unique twists. The family destroyers have resorted to cleverness to disguise their original intent. They do not want the parents to know that the destruction of the family is their goal. So they conceal their purposes by quietly causing problems that create intense pressures on the family. One of the methods utilized is that of inflation. Wow. Inflation is simply defined by a dictionary as an increase in the money supply causing prices to go up. That means that whoever controls the money supply controls the price level. Increase the money supply and prices rise. Decrease the money supply and prices go down, called deflation. Once inflation or deflation has been documented, the government economists point with pride at the supposed perpetuators, the public. It's the government. They never direct their attention at the real culprit, the Federal Reserve System. This private banking establishment has complete control over the quantity of money in circulation. Facts. Therefore, they have the ability to create inflation or deflation whenever they choose to do so. That is a fact. That's why Trump won't pile up out of there. That is a fact. The rising price level without a corresponding increase in a family's income causes the wife in the family unit who has chosen to care for her own child at home to leave the nurturing of the children to others in order to seek employment so she can increase the family's earnings. The parents are forced to place their children in a government-run school. This enables the planners to teach the children what they want at an earlier age. Didn't I just say that? And it places the mother in a position where she sees less and less of her children, and the children see more and more of the government trained substitute parents. That's a fact. The planners have been extremely successful as the number of working mothers has been increasing. According to a report in 1987, more than 44% of women work outside of the home compared to only 32% in 1960. So, a study showed by the American Academy of Pediatrics that the daycare center has a negative impact on the health of a child placed there by a working mother. When a child gets sick, the mother must take time off from her job to care for the child. That's a fact. Or you send your child there sick and get the other kids sick, or to place the child in the hands of a medical fraternity. If the mother gets paid by the hour, only gets paid when she is on the job, the frequent sickness costs the family revenue. That's a fact. And the only time the mother sees her child other than evenings or weekends is when the child is sick or not feeling well. But there's another lesser known problem when the mother is not directly involved with the child. John wrote in John Bowley in Material Care and Mental Health in 1951. He called the absence of this mother-child relationship maternal deprivation and said that it's likely to result in maladjustment of the child. This was the consensus view of the vast majority of psychologists, psychiatrists, pediatricians, and in general in the 1970s. The continuing debate is the testimony to the power of the feminist daycare lobby in academic and professional circles. He said it is stressful for children to have to cope with groups with strangers, with people outside of the family. And another wrote, unless you have very good reason, I urge you not to delegate the primary child rearing task to anyone else during your child's first 3 years of life. Wow. But the debate is certain to continue. Dang, that's a long chapter. That's why. Oh, okay. Those who warn against such practices will continue to be scorned by the feminists and others who have a hidden agenda. They want to destroy the family. The government is once again using tax laws to discriminate against families with full-time mothers. So now they're going into how tax laws affect families. A classic example of unrestrained use of government force against a child care facility occurred in 1984 when the state of Texas attempted to completely shut down 3 children's homes run by Pastor Lester Moloff. He, like Pastor Sylvan before, refused to allow the state to license his homes for the children who had been voluntarily placed there by their parents. The state of Texas went to court, but in 1981, a state district judge denied its request for injunction against the pastor homes, concluding that licensing procedure as applied to the church running them will violate the constitutions of both the United States and Texas. The Federal Court of Appeals affirmed the lower court's actions. However, the state Supreme Court rejected the church's contention that licensing would interfere with religious freedom. The Chief Justice did not object to the quality of the care. His concern was the simple fact that they were not subject to licensing. So the state wanted certain restrictions on the care provided children in Pastor Roller's homes. The state went after child care facilities was simply that they were too successful. You should not threaten a child with the displeasure of a deity. Wow. In other words, you couldn't tell a child that he was a sinner. Remember that these children have been placed in these homes because they have become disciplinary problems to their parents. The parents who have seen their children become involved in prostitution, drugs, and criminal activity have turned to the pastor for help in turning their child around. They turned to him because he was a Christian pastor and because he had demonstrated success in hundreds of other children. One of the reasons the pastor was successful was because he turned the children to religion. Yep. The second, the institution shall see that each child is supplied with personal clothing suitable to the child's age and size. It shall be comparable to the clothing of other children in the community. The pastor and his staff felt that much of the clothing the children were wearing was too suggestive and improper, so they attempted to provide the children with modest clothing. The third restriction was children should be encouraged to form friendships with persons outside of the institution. The fourth restriction, the opinions and recommendations of children in care should be considered in development and evaluation of the program and activity. Letting the inmates run the prison sounds like an excellent idea until the prisoner suggests that restraining bars should be removed. Many of these children had become discipline problems mainly because they had decided they could run their lives better than their parents. In Russia, it is the duty and matter of honor of every able-bodied citizen in accordance with the prison. He who does not work, neither shall he eat. That's biblical. If you don't work, you don't eat. So in Russia, the Soviet woman rises early, not much past 6, prepares breakfast for the family, gets the children off to school, goes to her own work. During lunch, is hurry up and wait. Instead of enjoying her breather, she bolts down her food and races to the nearest store where she waits and waits and waits to buy the needs of her family. Almost always there's shortage of meat, fruit, vegetables, soap, and quality products of anything. The Soviet economic system called Sovietism has been proven to be a failure. Ooh, by 6,000 years of experience. There's no food because of drought, reduced farm years. Military equipment spending priorities have replaced production quotas for communist consumption goods. It is certainly conceivable that those in charge want the married family to suffer those pressures. It is clear that pressure on a family is desired. No wonder so many Soviet men drank salt and accused their wives of frigidity and indifference. No wonder the Soviet Union is so rife with divorce. The married woman in Russia is obviously too tired to care for her husband, and the result becomes predictable, a rising divorce rate. And no one blames those who have intentionally created an economic system that has certain to put these pressures on the family. The planners have experienced their desired result. Marriage has become the least desired relationship in Russia. So those who want to destroy the family want the world to turn the society over to them. And those running society continue to destroy it. The strategy is not new. In fact, it has been a strategy of this conspiracy for centuries. They caused the problem, then they solve the problem with more government. That's a fact. And the people are convinced that their solution is desirable, generally because that is the only solution offered. And the end result is less freedom for the people. And it works every time. That's what I keep telling my friends. Listen, when they do the sacrifices of people, it's a car crash, the brakes went out, a plane crash, a suicide, or they discredit them. They do the same thing over and over again because it works. This gonna be. I don't know. I can probably do that together. But this is what we read. We almost done, and then we gonna start. Man, where's my book at? Um, on this one. This is something I've been wanting to read. Trilateralism. This is a secret society. This is an old book. Oh, wow. This is a secret society, but these are the people that run the government. This is gonna be good. I had this book for many years. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Love y'all. Gotta go. About to go.